Shalom Aleichem. Let's learn a Sicha, the Sicha Vayeitzei Aleph. It's a short Sicha from Vayeitzei Yud Kislev Tavshin Chavav, and it's a Sicha that explores the difference between Avraham, Yitzchok, and Yaakov, specifically the Avodah of Yaakov, as Parshas Vayeitzei is the beginning of the 6 parshiyos that focus exclusively on Yaakov and his mishpacha. On the pasuk that says Vayeitzei Yaakov Mib'er Shava, the Medrash says in Bnei Rabbi, Mib'er Shava. What does mean Mib'er Shava? Not only from the literal place Be'er Shava, Mib'eida Shel Shvua, from the well of the Shvua. Which Shvua? Omar, Yaakov said to himself, Shlo Yamed Alai Avimelech v'Yemedi Shalom. I'm worried that Avimelech will come and insist that I swear to him. Kishem Shnishbatali Nishbalis Kenecha, just like my grandfather Avram swore to him. And him says, Mashe b'simchas bonai zayin daras. And it comes out that I will be holding back the simchas of my children 7 daras. What does that mean? Avram promised Avimelech, and through that shvua he kept the Yidden from going into Eretz Yisrael 7 daras, like the Medrash says in Parshas Vayeitzei, also Bnei Shtaba, that from Avram till Kibush Eretz Sichem Va'ek to Moshe Rabbeinu was 7 daras. And Yitzchok also promised Avimelech, and he pushed it off another dar. Why? Because from Yitzchok till Kibush Haaretz through Yeshua. Remember, Moshe Rabbeinu just started the beginning of Kibush, because he did Eretz Sichem Va'ek, which is on the east of the Jordan. The main Kibush of Eretz Yisrael, the conquering of Eretz Yisrael, happened through Yeshua, which was 7 generations from Yitzchak. So Yaakov was worried maybe he's going to have to swear to Avimelech as well and pick them up another generation. That's the Shaila. I understand. If Avraham and Avimelech if Avraham and Yitzchak swore to Avimelech and didn't worry, and they didn't leave Avimelech in case they might have to swear, why does Yaakov have to worry? And also, if it's wrong, then why did Avraham and Yitzchak do it? So it's the beer in this Sikha is going to be very much al derech Chassidus, through the eyes of Chassidus, to understand the difference between Avraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov. We have to understand the fundamental difference in their avodah, the way they served Hashem. Avram, we know, Yatsa Mimeni Yishmael, 50% of his descendants. Truth is much more because he had 6 children later. But from his, what we call high-born descendants, Yishmael leaves. Yitzchak, Yatsa Mimenu Esav leaves. In other words, even though Yishmael and Esav are the children of Avram and Yitzchak, nevertheless, they left their connection and they separated. Why? Because the Kedusha of Avram and Yitzchak and their avodah did not penetrate their children to transform itself. There's a difference between Yishmael and Esav, but over here the principle. But Yaakov, his maila is mitasish lema, his bed is complete. In other words, all his descendants, the 12 Shvatim, Dina, etc., were successful. They stayed within the fold. Why? Because his avodah was poil, and all the 12 children, they should be shleimim and connected to Yaakov in his level. Now, even though we say regarding all the avos, Heim Merkava, they are the chariot of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's from the Medrash, and it's explored in Chassidus. And each one neshama of the Avos came from the world of Atzilus, like it says in Tanya. Nevertheless, there's a difference. And also and it manifests also in the Avodah, the way they dealt with things which are against Kedusha. Yaakov elevates Kedusha, transforms it. Avraham and Yitzchak, they don't. And therefore, even though Yishmael did Shuvah, and we see that according to some opinions, when Esav runs to Yaakov in next week's Parsha and kisses him, Neshake b'chol libi, was a full-hearted kiss. Nevertheless, it didn't last. So what do you mean? Only Yaakov did Avodah Sabirim? Only Yaakov was refining the world? Avraham and Yitzchak were not? We see that Avraham Avinu, Vayikra Shem Hashem Hashem K'Elohim, he called out. He taught the name of Hashem to every single person, passerby. And we also learn regarding Yitzchak's digging of wells, Torah explains that it was also an avodah. Nevertheless, the Rebbe says their avodah with that, the way they dealt with evil, was negation, putting away, yatsa mimenu, get away, but not transformation. In other words, maybe iskafia, not isabcha. The only way they interacted with Ra was by negation, by negating it, by taking away its opposition. However, Yaakov, he goes to Chadayin Avshalmokim, he goes to the worst place, which angers Hashem, and over there he's poil to refine it and transform it. And like the difference between tzaddikim and baal tshuva, the tzaddik has no shaychus to that. He has nothing, even a machshava zora, that's a thought that's foreign to Hashem, he does not allow, like Tanya explains. However, the baal tshuva, his mission and purpose is to transform evil to kedusha, and so much so is donis nasa like hizachiyus. That things that are various that he did intentionally become meritorious, become mitzvahs. Now, because through the avodah of Avraham and Yitzchok, evil was not refined, the Ra within Plishtim specifically was not refined, and all they did was oppose, make sure that its opposition is subtilized and taken away. There was room that the existence of Shmuel and Esav should exist. These are the children of Avraham and Yitzchok, but there is room for them to exist within this paradigm. And Yatzam, they could exist and totally remove themselves from their father. However, they didn't oppose their parents. So the Klippa maybe wasn't opposing, but it was there. And Avraham and Yitzchok's avodah wasn't able to affect them. So the existence of that is not fundamentally opposed through the avodah of Avraham and Yitzchok. In other words, they're no longer able to fight, but their existence is not negated through the avodah of Avraham and Yitzchok. There's still room for their existence. Like we see that Avram settles by B'seich Neches. They recognize these Nasi Elikim. They recognize, as the Rebbe says, B'seichenu, you're amongst us, you're a Navi, as the Ebenezer says. Nevertheless, it didn't transform them. They stayed Neches. And even they agreed Marasa Machpelah, it's only that they didn't interrupt him. But they didn't get transformed to Kedusha. However, Yaakov, his tachlis was to transform. So not only is there no room for Klippa to fight you, there's no room for Klippa to exist. And therefore, mitas shlema. Now we can understand why Avraham and Yitzchok make a covenant with Avimelech versus Yaakov, who's afraid of it and doesn't want to. Because what's the point of making that covenant? It's to make sure that each one, the two sides, stay in peace. No fights. That was the purpose of Avraham and Yitzchok. They made a covenant with Avimelech. No fights. Let me do my work, you do your work. But the covenant doesn't transform the Mahus of Avimelech. Avimelech stays Avimelech. He doesn't become Kedusha. But that's only the way Avraham and Yitzchok do Aved. Yaakov, because his whole Nekuda is to negate Klippa in a way that doesn't exist. And over here the Rabbi says it's both Iskafia and Ishapcha, Yaakov. It's almost like Avraham and Yitzchok is no Iskafia even. It's just non-existent. You're just quiet. So he couldn't make a covenant with Avimelech and accept him the way he is. Says the Rebbe, why did Yaakov make a covenant with Lavan? Says the Rebbe, over there it was only to make a covenant that you don't hurt one another, but you could pass for business. And plakmat, business is a way of bir and tzitzis. In other words, there was room for bir and tzitzis even with Lavan as well. And that's why Yaakov leaves Beersheva, he leaves Be'er Shashua, because he could not accept that there's that. And therefore, I cannot stay in the place of Hashem. This Eretz Yisrael, if I cannot work with Avimelech, I'll go to Chareinav Shalmokim and I'll transform it there. And therefore, we understand why Avraham and Yitzchok weren't worried, even though it will keep up the simcha of their children for 7 generations. Because the Rebbe says, it's not the Shvuah itself that held it back. It was their avodah that held it back. In other words, the Shvuah is just a byproduct. It's just an outcome. It's a symptom. Their avodah, the way they interact with Avimelech, left room for Avimelech to last another 7 generations, and that holds back the Yidden from coming back. Only after Yaakov goes into Golus, Chareinav Shalmakim, and starts transforming, does the avodah enable Am Yisrael eventually to come into Eretz Yisrael. And so too, the Rebbe says the Gula Asida, Mashiach, is going to come dafka to the avodah of Yaakov, that through our avodah, the time of Golus, and refining this world, dafka Chareinav Shalmakim, we get the Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi, which, as it says in the Gemara, like Avram shekasa b'yihal, like Yitzchak shekasa b'yisada, elak Yaakov shekar le'bayis, we have the Beis Hamikdash, Revias Mashiach Tzidkenu, take it from me on Mamash.